Hey everybody, it's Richard from the Homeschool Freedom Club. I'm doing another interview in the series of How I Earn and Home Educate, and today I'm joined by Louisa Andrea. So welcome, Louisa. Thanks for coming and joining me today.
Thank you, Richard. It's an absolute pleasure. I got really excited actually when you reached out. So,
Fantastic.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for having me.
No, that's all right. So, I mean, Louisa and I have known each other for a few years through the home education side of things, and I wanted to really just introduce Louisa to you because for me she's a really inspirational figure, and I just wanted to introduce her and get her to talk about her life and the fact she's home educated two young men, and still is. And just so if you could just sort of give us an introduction to yourself, Louisa, and tell us a bit about you.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. So, my homeschooling journey started with my eldest, who is now 19, and he was in the school system. He started in school. We had a couple of years of him being in the school system, and it just really wasn't working for him. It was really obvious to me quite early on that this was not the environment for him. He was always getting into trouble. Like he was the kid that would finish all his work super fast, um, and then would be looking for something more and wasn't being stimulated, right? So
Yeah.
his then outlet was to like play with the other kids, but of course that wasn't conducive to classroom, behavioural policy, and he's trying to make his mate laugh next to him. So he was not disruptive in a sort of unpleasant way, but he
Yeah.
was seeking something more and was not being stimulated, not given additional work or additional responsibility. And so I
Yeah.
decided what the crux of it was for me was going into school or picking him up one day from school, and he came out of school and he said to me, why do you leave me with people that don't love me? Like, and
Wow.
it hit me.
Oh,
Yeah, it
wow.
was really powerful. It hit me in the gut, and he was unhappy, and I could see that this environment was not working for him. In spite of my efforts, I would actually volunteer and go into the school and
Yeah.
be like a support in the classroom, and from my observations, I could just see that this the way the system was set up was not going to help him. It was actually damaging him, and he was losing the love of learning, and he was becoming frustrated. So after lengthy conversations with the school, with the head, um, I kind of determined that the best option would be to pull him out of the environment, actually with the school's blessing, because they could see that they were not able to meet his needs. They were not able to provide additional work for him, or they just did not have at the time the resources available to push him forward, because in his intellect is actually got very fast processing speed. He was able to pick up a lot of information very quickly,
Yeah.
um, and that kind of thirst for learning wasn't being met. I mean, and actually, when I first started the homeschooling journey, it took a bit of unwinding from the school trauma, like I think a lot of us that have
Yeah.
had our kids in
Yeah.
school to go through. But also I realized in observation of him in that way, like if he had an idea of a project or something he wanted to do, if I couldn't provide the resources immediately and
Yeah.
catch that wave, he would be off and on to something else, or would just completely lose interest because
Right.
his processing speed was so fast that I even could not keep up with him. So it
Right.
became like quite a journey for me to learn how to adapt to his needs and how to provide for those needs. And actually, what I discovered with him is that he really wanted to take the lead in all ways. Like he wanted to find the resources, so I started to let him find the resources because
Yeah.
I just couldn't keep up. I don't work that fast. I'm a bit more of a kind of snail's pace, laid back. And then he was like, no, I'm on it. So I had to give him a lot more autonomy at quite a young age. Um, and he's now we did the homeschooling with him. He got to the point where he decided he wanted to go to college, and he knew it was a music college in East London. I can't remember it now. Elam, its name.
Mhm.
Um, Very oversubscribed music college, and he knew from the age of 11 that he wanted to go there to study music
Wow.
production. Um, and then he knew he would need GCSEs for that. He researched how many GCSEs. He found the college,
Uh-huh.
found the number of GCSEs that he would need, told me what he needed to do, and I got him the resources to do it.
Yeah.
He did go into a college provision to
Yeah.
do 3 of the GCSEs. It was like a set up for home educators
Yeah.
to put their kids in. So he did that, and we studied an additional 2 at home. But again, it was all so self-led. I feel like I really didn't have much to do with that kind of thing. I don't give myself credit for it. So I just provided him with
Yeah.
what I could provide him with, and he just ran with it because he saw the motivation. He had the motivation, and it came
Yeah.
from him. Which was to observe and witness was just astounding because I had a lot of, family. My family are beautiful and they're incredibly supportive, but I know that there were moments where they were like, "What is she doing?
Doing. Yeah.
Like how is this all going to pan out?" Like, I know there was concern. So to see him flourish in that way has just been brilliant for the whole family.
Yeah.
And it really affirming for me that it's important to listen to your instincts and take the deep breath and take the step. He did go into the college and he excelled in college. We did it a year late. We took a
Uh-huh.
gap year to come after the GCSEs to come away to Egypt. It was our first kind of jump into a more long-term travel. We've done a lot of short travel
Yeah.
before then, but we jumped into the travel. That was, according to him, uh, one of the most enlightening experiences of his life, and
Yeah.
he thinks and feels it gave him the right foundation to then start college. And when he started college, he completed the 2 years with distinctions across the board. So he's been such a success story. Then I have the younger one that you know from.
Yeah, I know him.
Then I have, you know him well. He's currently sleeping. I told him, listen, you're going to hear mummy making some noise, but just don't disturb the call. Like I'm letting him have a lay in today. So yeah, so with my youngest, he did a little bit of nursery, really light-hearted nursery.
Yeah.
I didn't put him into school because we were already doing the homeschool thing, and it was working, and it was our life was set up around
Yeah.
it. Um, I didn't put him into school for a short stint. He went into school just prior to the lockdowns in
Yeah.
2020, and he did okay, and I'm sure he would have been okay. But I chose to not continue with that path after the
Yeah.
lockdowns happened.
I think a
My
lot of people
concern,
took that route.
yeah, yes, I mean, I was aware that at the time the level of the numbers of homeschoolers just expanded massively, and they
Yeah.
didn't put their kids back in school because suddenly people realised, there's a different way. My concern with putting him back into school was the level of stress and anxiety in the teachers that
Yeah.
a sensitive kid would absorb. And I just didn't want him in that kind of environment. So yeah, that was quite, and like 2020 was a catalyst for us all as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In many ways. And it was at that point that I decided that we were going to make the bigger move to do some travel and come to Egypt. So yeah, so it's been an interesting journey, one of success in terms of my son and where, like the older one, and where he's ended up.
Yeah.
One that we're still figuring out with the younger one. Like he's a different person. Like I can't follow what I'm really learning is I can't follow the same blueprint
Yeah.
because they are completely different people. So I'm facing different sets of challenges with him, and him with me as as well. Like
But I mean,
it's
that's kind of the beauty of like home education, isn't it? You can cater for their needs independently. I think you touched on some really sort of important points there. One of them being about travel and how that year sort of really set your son up for his time at college. But also about that intrinsic motivation that kids have. And when you find that, the trick is just finding what it is that motivates them. And then once they're motivated, just off they go. And, and this is what I feel, we're just facilitators for our kids. We're not teachers, you just help them along the path that they choose. And if it gets to a dead end and they decide that's not for them, that's fine. Then they find something else. And it's just such a wonderful experience watching. We were talking about unfolding, weren't we, just for the interview, but watching that unfold and watching them follow their passions is a real benefit. And it's something that I think home educated kids, that's a real gift for them, because at school, they're at school. I did a post on this the other day. Then they come home, they've got homework. so they never get that chance to really find what sort of lights them up,
Yeah.
and then they leave school kind of lost, you know.
Yeah.
And you
Well,
give
that
them
was
that gift of
definitely
time
my
at home.
experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was
That was
mine too,
definitely my
absolutely.
experience.
But you
Yeah.
know, you bring them home, and they've got this gift of time, and they get to discover all this cool stuff, and they get to pick what they want to do, and I think it's absolutely wonderful. So
Yeah.
I think you did a big chunk of the homeschooling journey on your own as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I was a single parent through a lot of it. I mean, there was I did have a partnership at a certain point, but the early days were definitely alone. And the partnership was actually, it was a breath of fresh air for a
Yeah,
while it was in place. Um, and I'm very grateful for that actually, because it just sort of meant, you know, a second pair of hands is really helpful in whatever capacity they can
yeah,
provide support
yeah,
with a single parent. So but because they were not his children, I still had largely the emotional
yeah,
and the decision making was still on me. So it still really felt like I was functioning as a single parent, and I was financially supporting us
yeah,
as well. So it
yeah,
was a tricky time financially. I had to. I mean, my story as a single parent in the early days, becoming a single parent actually enabled me to home educate. It
yeah,
would not have been, the relationship with their dad would not have been a conducive, a good environment for
yeah,
that would be conducive for healthy home education experience. And so it was actually when the relationship broke down that it allowed me the room and space to consider home education. So actually it wouldn't have happened, I don't think, otherwise. At the
yeah,
time, I've been working consistently. I was working in sort of fairly corporate roles prior to this, and having the kids.
yeah,
Um, when at the point that I decided to home educate, I still had a young baby. So my youngest was only 5 months old when the relationship broke down.
yeah.
Um, and then I found myself on my own. So I was in the middle of maternity leave from the previous corporate job. So I
Right.
had some buffer financially until the end of the maternity
Yeah,
leave situation. And then I had to lean into income support afterwards. You know,
yeah,
it was a decision that I made because we needed some recalibration time from the emotional impact of the separation and the adjustment for my eldest in how he was adjusting to that separation. And I just, yeah, working at that point was not an option. I needed to be present for my kids. So I didn't go back to work immediately. I took a moment to take a back step, had the support of income support. And also, as I said, I'm very blessed and will highlight that I have had parental support in this for myself
yeah,
as well, which I know not everybody does have. But if,
yeah,
you know, if there was an emergency, I had someone to call on.
yeah,
If I couldn't pay for the car's MOT, I had someone to call on. So I
yeah,
want to be really transparent about that, because I know not everybody is in that
yeah.
situation where they
True.
have that support, and so it's a very different scenario. That doesn't mean that I wasn't often hands to mouth. It
Yeah,
absolutely means that there were many days I was counting the pennies out of the jar, because I wasn't going to, you know, just ask for things unnecessarily.
yeah,
I'd save that for the big stuff when it came up,
yeah,
you know, like rescue me from this one, please, Mum. Um, so I'm very grateful for that support, and I want to honour my parents for their you know, support in everything that I've done. Actually, they're my biggest fans and biggest
yeah. That's
supporters.
amazing.
They believe in me so much. You know, it's really helped to keep me going with all of these dreams and aspirations. So what I did eventually was, so I took him out of school, gave us some recalibration time, and then started to feel into, okay, what work can I do that's going to enable me to continue this lifestyle
Yeah,
of home education. I knew there would be sacrifice. I knew I couldn't walk back into a corporate setting, or a kind of more pressurized
yeah,
work environment like that. And to be honest, I didn't really want that either. I'm a bit of a creative soul. I didn't really enjoy it. It was kind of
yeah,
sucking the life out of me in those sort of jobs anyway. Um, so that was when I started to look at, right, okay, what are my kids' interests? And I realized that my eldest was into dancing, break dancing. And so I
yeah,
kind of got us into that world. And that led to a collaboration with someone that was a friend of mine who was already running a dance company. And
yeah.
we teamed up. So we went into this partnership together. And we
Right.
were running, it was called Be Better Dance Academy. I think it's still running at the moment. So we were doing this, and so that meant that my work was really focused around building the business, which I could kind of do at any point in the day. The weekends were our dance days, so we were in the dance studio. The kids would be with me. We ran adults and kids dance classes.
Yeah.
I was coordinating. The kids would, well, my eldest was dancing. My youngest was still a breastfed baby, so I'd be in the dance studio breastfeeding
Yeah.
the baby, and then put the baby to sleep and join in with the dancing. You know, like it was, but it was nourishing for me as well, and it
Yeah.
really brought me, it was like a slow introduction back into like the idea of working for myself and doing something for myself. That kind of then developed into me setting up my own dance company that was closer to home. So I had my Tribe Dance Academy, and I
Yeah.
would have hip hop and street dancers come and teach, and we were working with the military from Woolwich Barracks,
Right. Okay.
providing services for them, and working in several schools around Greenwich Borough. So this was my focus at this point. I decided to, it was about to blow up because the GLL in Greenwich were talking about giving me a contract, because I was also contracted with Charlton Athletic Community Trust.
Okay.
They were the community trust linked to the football club.
Yeah.
So I was providing sessions for them as a part in partnership. And this GLL, they're the big sports organisation. It came up as they was potentially wanting to create a contract, and I looked at it, I'm like, well, I kind of felt like I don't want to take this any further, actually. I feel like that for me is like the
Yeah.
marker of success. But do I actually want to do the work that that's going to take to run
Yeah.
that and do? And I realized at that point, no, because it's taking me away from actually the part that I'm passionate about, which is
Yeah.
in the studios with the kids. And it would have meant it was a much more kind of heavily focused on operations and
Yeah.
managerial.
Sort of
And I
admin
just
stuff.
thought,
Yeah.
yeah. So I let it go, which was a bit brave at the time because it was my only income source. And
Yeah.
actually, what happened was the youth services for the community trust were like, we don't really want to lose you completely from our circle. Would you come and work for us? So that was perfect
Okay.
because it gave me, yeah. So this was my journey then into youth work. So they trained me as a youth worker. I became a senior youth worker in a short space of time with them. They also would pull me out to do other roles, working with the management team,
Yeah.
like meetings with the council and things. So they were very good at kind of seeing my skill set. What that meant was that I could keep home educating, and my work my kids could come to because it was youth club settings.
Yeah.
So it enabled me to keep working and have those spaces and mentors for my kids in other youth
Yeah.
workers, and all of the resources available within the youth services became resources that I could draw upon for the kids. So that was kind of how I managed.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I think that there's a real clue in there, isn't it, for people? Find out what your kids are passionate about, and then work. Fit your work into what they love.
Exactly.
It's got. I mean, we do something similar out here. We run, because my wife's Russian. You met Anna, and she's got a lot of Russian friends, but they want their kids to learn English from somebody who's English. So we run book clubs sort of every other weekend or whatever in Limassol, and so we get the kids come along. I read to them. They we discuss the books in English, and our kids of course can join in with that as well. So it's just there's all sorts of stuff you can do when you really set your mind to it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's loads, and I see this a lot actually. I often feel very inspired by the home education community and the worldschooling community, because I see this pop up quite a lot. Parents who feel into what their kids really want to do, and there are some really, I think, successful people doing this, organizing the events that their kids want for education, inviting others.
Yeah.
You can incorporate your costs so that
Yeah.
it doesn't cost you, so even if it's just that, it's funding your education journey,
Yeah.
and I think
Exactly.
there's so much opportunity. Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point, to focus in on what your kids' interests are. Yeah, I definitely did that without even thinking about it until now
Yeah.
that you've reflected that. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and and you're still really doing that, aren't you? Because you've got the Worldschooling hub in Marsa Alam,
Yeah.
and then you're running retreats down there. So I'd like to really talk about those. So let's go to the Worldschooling sort of first. And just
Yes.
just tell us a little bit more about what you're offering down there, because I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. It's such a passion project. So, yeah, we landed in Egypt. We did our bit of travel around, and within the first few months, we found our way to Marsa Alam. I love Egypt for all of the things. There's many different environments that you can enjoy. There's the history, there's the modern culture, there's the Red Sea coast.
Yeah,
Marsa Alam is a really remote part of the Red Sea coast. It's not built up like Sharm el Sheikh or Hurghada. It's very quiet. It's kind of industrial, the actual town.
yeah,
It's the gold mine in the region. So there's a lot of gold mining workers here from Egypt and some from abroad. So it's relatively unspoilt coastline. It's also on
yeah,
the edge of a national park. So there's the rich and diverse life of the desert wadis, the desert valleys,
yeah,
um, and the desert botanicals, and it's and as well the Ababda Bedouins that live here.
yeah,
Um, so I got here and just fell in love with I mean, I'm a mermaid. I love the sea. Like, you'll catch me in the water more often than not. Like, I'm
yeah,
at my happiest when I'm in the water. And the unspoiled nature of that coastline here is just breathtaking. It's like the only place right now that I know of where I can be on a beach and look to my left and my right and see absolutely nothing around me,
yeah,
um, except where the desert meets the sea. It's stunning.
yeah,
And the diverse marine biology just captured my heart. And the people, we landed
yeah,
in this really special place and completely fell in love with the people. This was me and another Worldschooling mama. We'd actually met in Luxor. We came to Luxor originally to join
uh-huh,
a Worldschool hub that was happening there. A lady called Louise Morris was running it. I do want to give her just a mention. Because unfortunately she passed away this year, and it sort of sent shockwaves through the
yeah,
community. I want to honour her for what she created and the legacy that she left there, because that's what drew me in. I mean, my history with Egypt goes way, way back,
yeah,
to before I had kids. But this was my journey back. She was like my gateway in, my entry
yeah,
point back in. So I want to just honour her memory there. And I'd come with another mum and some other Worldschooling families on this like mini side quest trip to Marsa Alam.
yeah,
So myself and Nadia, who we were here together, she was like, this would be a great place for a Worldschool hub. And I was like, well, I'd kind of want to come back, but let's see what the kids want. And so it felt very child-led, because her son was like, he wanted to come back next week to actually do a diving course. And
yeah.
then my son was like, yeah, let's do it. I hadn't got there was no intention of coming back before that the kids wanted to come back. So we followed them. So
Yeah,
again, it's like following the kids' interests at the time. Um, and that led us into, eventually, cutting a long story short, the
yeah,
creation of the first set of Worldschool hubs, which was last year. We ran 4 hubs, 4-month-long hubs,
okay,
which were amazing, and also a baptism of fire. Like,
yeah,
we learned a lot in the process. We had some interesting. It was an interesting time. There was a big power cut in the region, because this is a remote area. So when
yeah,
something happens, like a power cut, or
yeah,
the electricity pylons go out, we found ourselves in a bit of a tricky situation, because it wasn't a problem that was easily fixed at the
yeah,
time. And it had some knock-on effects, like, oh, nobody can get water because the big water plant generator is not
oh God,
working, because so then all the big bottles of water were running out. Everyone was buying them, and there were not deliveries coming soon enough. And so it was really,
yeah,
I mean, it was quite a tricky situation. So we found ourselves actually in the middle of it, having to do this
yeah,
crisis management to support the families that were coming. This was also in amongst sickness, so there'd been a tummy bug that had gone round.
right, lovely,
Yeah, so I'm like, the reason I'm sharing this is because I don't want to make it all sound, it's not all glamorous all the time. Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not all perfect. There's problems sometimes, and you just have to have this resilience to
yeah,
kind of move through them and not give up. Because I found it really disheartening at the time, and I was like, there were a lot of tears, because it
yeah,
was not what we wanted it to be, even though there were some really beautiful moments throughout the 4 months that we were running it. This blip that lasted maybe a week was probably one of the most stressful times in my
Yeah.
life. Because we're responsible for other people, not just
Yeah.
us. Like, you know, we can manage in these situations, but not everyone can. But what it did was inform us about what we would need to put in place next time and how we would
Yeah.
support people through those eventualities. And also just simply in the messaging that we put out to people, like Master Alam is a bit of a rough and rugged place.
Yeah.
Come if you're resilient, come if you like adventure, come if you're like able to be self-responsible. Like
Yeah.
we really now know how to, you know, seek the right people for the provision. And that was a big learning curve for us. What we're
Yeah.
creating is not for everyone. And at the beginning, of course, we were like, yeah, we want bookings, we want bookings, we
Yeah.
want this to work. So we were not as discerning actually as in our messaging as we could have been. So it was a learning curve, but a beautiful learning curve. And I can say that the adjustments and things that we've done differently this time,
Yeah.
this year in August, we welcomed a group of families to come and join us in Master Alam, and we applied all of those lessons, and
Yeah.
we had the most fantastic
Yeah.
time. We took every single family has given us an incredible testimonial of how it has transformed their families' lives. Not just it was a great time thanks for the
Yeah.
adventure. It's been transformative for
That's
these families.
fantastic.
Yeah, which makes my soul sing. So right there is, I think, what lies at the heart of my motivation for everything that I do.
Yeah.
It's that providing spaces for people to unravel, unwind, and discover themselves and have those transformative experiences. And I think that works in terms of what I do with the Worldschooling and with Nadia, and in my
Yeah.
partnership with Sophia that I do the women's retreats with. And
Yeah.
it like the golden thread through it all, which I think really sums up all the work I do in my coaching, because as you know, I teach mindfulness and meditation, I do
Yeah.
healing work, so it is that kind of golden thread through it all. So yeah, it's definitely a passion project.
And, well, yeah, but I mean, you're also doing sort of, I guess, building from the world schooling maybe, but retreats for teens as well, which is what really piqued
Yeah.
my interest actually. So, can you go into a little bit more detail on what
I love
and
it.
what they'll get from it? And
Yeah,
I think it's
absolutely
great also that you're quite often parents don't want to come away without the kids. That means the mums can't go
right.
to the retreats, but you're running them side by side for the mums, aren't you? So
Yeah. And this was again born out of the need for me to provide for my own son, right? So I'm running these
yeah,
retreats for women. We've run several retreats for women in Luxor now, and they're week-long retreats. And during those retreats, I'm having to provide provision for my son because I'm focused on the retreats, and it's like
yeah,
7:30 in the morning until 9 at night. Mummy's not available, and
yeah,
trying to balance his needs alongside that, it's not been easy. And there's been many moments where I've thought I'm being a selfish mum, I'm not present for him, but at the same time I know that what I'm doing feels bigger than me as well, and it's like I can't
yeah,
stop. I
yeah,
just have to keep running. So the idea of a teen retreat came about for that reason, because I really want him to be around other young people. He's now 13, and at that age where I'm starting to see massive changes.
yeah,
I've worked with teenagers a lot, but even working with teenagers through the youth services and all of the training doesn't prepare you for those times with your own teen, because it's personally triggering, right? So it makes you kind of have to really go through the fire again. So I felt like I wanted for him to have, I'd been seeking a rites of passage for a long time. I've been looking, probably since he was about 11, I've been looking around to see who was doing rites of passage type things for teenagers.
yeah,
Something, by rites of passage, what that means to me is something that marks the transition from childhood into adolescence, and
hmm
helps young people to feel into how they feel differently, or how the world sees them differently.
yeah,
I remember with my older son, there was that moment where he realized the world was viewing him in a different way because his body was changing. They no longer saw him as a child, but
right,
he felt like a child. So he
yeah,
was coming up against like abrasive adult behavior towards him because he was a teenager on the bus, and some
yeah,
people just don't like teenagers, you know. And
exactly,
he was
yeah,
like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, mum. I don't know. I'm like, no, it's just your body is different. They're not seeing you as a child. So what you are still seeing as playful behavior is feeling threatening to some
Yeah,
adult,
yeah, because
right? So
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
yeah, I'm sure you as a young man, you went through something
yeah,
similar, did you? Yeah,
yeah. I was
yeah.
always big for my age as well, so just yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And I think it just brings up a lot of questions, and I appreciate and love the idea of mentor. I think mentoring for teens is a really powerful thing,
yeah,
the right mentors. And so we approached a woman here in Egypt, Luxor. She's got extensive experience working with teens in these settings. She's
yeah,
also very focused in on physical theatre and creative arts as a means to teaching. And she's really into the idea of like home education and autonomy in young
yeah,
people. So we sort of hashed out a program with her input that just set my soul on fire. I'm like, yeah, this is it.
yeah,
So the idea is that during the week, the teens, it's a small group. We're limiting it to actually 5 in total, potentially 6 if someone has like 2 teenagers. There's room for additional teens if it's like with one mother, but we have space for
yeah.
4 more mothers that will join our main signature retreat, which is the Amenti Rebirth Retreat. So
Uh-huh.
we already have 8 women signed up for that retreat, that will be staying in one villa. We're
Yeah,
then inviting 4 mothers and their teenagers into a combined program. The mothers will join the already created signature retreat, the Amenti
yeah.
Rebirth Retreat, for the day program. And their teenagers during the day will go through their own program with
Okay.
this amazing work. The parents and the teens will come back together at night into a different villa and
Uh-huh.
stay together overnight. So
Yeah,
I will be staying there with them and my son, and
yeah,
so that's
yeah.
how we've worked.
Fantastic.
It's going to be really good. The idea is that we, during the teen retreat, utilising physical theatre, creative arts, um, some tools that they'll learn, such as like journaling, some mindfulness practices, physical movement and activity, but
Yeah,
also giving them time and space to just be teens and hang out because that's what they want. It's not going to be like a heavy program. It's going to be fun and light for them,
yeah,
and it will explore those themes of belonging, who they want to be in the world, how the world sees them,
yeah,
how relationships work, like all of those
yeah,
sort of things that are important, as well as kind of weaving it through some learning around ancient Egyptian ceremony and ritual.
okay,
Um, so they'll actually go into the temples and they'll do some kind of role play and just
yeah,
investigation into this, and then they'll create something of value for themselves that they can share with the parents at the end of the week.
yeah,
It may have different elements according to the young person's area of interest. Like my son loves acting, so he might want to
yeah,
do some script writing or some sort of play. Someone else might be into art or sport, or so whatever it is that their interest is, there will be a way for them to bring that into that final creative
yeah,
piece that reflects some of the themes that they've been learning, and it will be posed in the theme of ancient ritual and ceremony.
yeah,
So it will be kind of woven in like that. That's it in a
yeah.
nutshell, but we're
No, that's
hoping that it's going to be super fun for them.
that's absolutely amazing because teens generally well, A, they don't listen to their parents.
Yeah, no,
It's B,
not at all.
they're at that crossroads. There's lots of stuff going on in their bodies anyway, but they're kind of at that crossroads, as you say, between sort of adult and child, aren't they? And it's a really important thing, I think, to be able to give them that guidance because quite often I think parents don't know how to give that guidance often.
No, exactly.
And
It's difficult. It's really
it's
difficult because we're triggered, aren't we, as
yeah,
parents as well, into our own stuff comes up. So
yeah, exactly. And what we sort of perceive as, I don't know, rudeness or abruptness or whatever, it's just because they're going through these changes and they don't know how to handle it themselves.
yeah,
And so, no, I think that's absolutely fantastic, Louise. I really, really love
yeah.
it.
Thank you. I'm really excited about it. And I think for the mothers, and of course I'm in that same stage and I'm going through it, although I've done it before, I have
Yeah,
got some insight, but but it's now I'm going through it with a different young person. So it's bringing up different things in me to process in myself.
Yeah.
So for the mothers, I think it gives them an opportunity to know their kids are really safely held.
Yeah.
You know, like safety is our priority. We all have experience. I mean, I was a safeguarding officer for years and well trained in
Yeah.
safeguarding aspects of this, as are the women. There are two other helpers, so it's three women supporting the teens, and they're all trained in safe. So safety and also emotional safety is our priority for them.
Yeah.
It means the mothers get to know their kids are being nourished, and they get to join a program for themselves as well.
Yeah.
And it is a transformational retreat. We utilize guided meditations. We weave people through all the temples of Luxor,
Yeah.
and do some practices at the villa. It's an opportunity for physical detox as well through the foods that we offer
Yeah.
as part of the program. And also sisterhood, like to come together with mothers and others that are not mothers, and
Yeah.
to share I mean, women coming together in circle is powerful
Yeah.
anyway. Like it always blows my mind what comes from that organically without our directing. It's like
Yeah.
we give a lot of space for that to just unfold. So I'm super excited because I think it's an opportunity for mothers to also rediscover themselves and, you know, ask those questions about how they can deepen their relationship with their teenagers. This is an area of interest for me, and I've coached parents in this area.
Yeah.
I've done coaching for both, like I've coached teenagers and parents at the same time,
Right.
separately through these difficult years. And we utilize mindfulness meditation and all of my learning around team development through the
Yeah.
youth services. So yeah, I think it's a passionate area for me as well as me being in it. So
Yeah.
it's, you know, like, yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. So yeah, I'd love to welcome some mothers that are feeling the call to that and their teams to join us. It would be fantastic.
That's awesome. Well, I think we'll wrap things up here, Louisa, because that's a really nice way
Yeah,
to end it. So we'll
yeah,
put your links and bits and pieces. We'll put them. You look for them in the comments or in the post, and we'll put links to the World Schooling Hub and the retreats as well. And
thank
just remains to say thank you ever so much for spending time with me today. Really enjoyed chatting to you again. And
yeah.
your best of luck with all of it, honestly.
Richard, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I love how much you support my work, and I support yours as 100% as
Yeah,
well.
thank you, you
So
do.
yeah, let's keep supporting each other and everyone else in our fields as well. Yeah, let's keep
Awesome.
going. Thank you
Thanks
so
so much,
much.
Louisa. Take care. Bye
Take care. Bye.
bye.